Welcome to Isn't It Obvious, where things are obvious. That's going to be the intro.
That's gonna be the intro forever now.
Right. So I have a follow-up about the toilet store. I ordered special order toilets at the local hardware store, and it's going to take 3 weeks from when you order it to when it gets to the store to pick it up. And I never tried this toilet, so I'm kind of like not sure if I made the right type of call.
Did you get the custom cheek grooves?
No.
Did you get a
it
heated
cost
seat?
extra. No, I did
Did
not.
you get a
Did you get
built-in
the
bidet?
AC seat?
These are very basic, but
Then
So
why
why
the
is
hell
this
taking 3
custom?
weeks?
What's custom about it?
they don't have like the kind of the groove shape of a toilet. I don't know if you guys looked at toilets a lot, but when you see like a standard residential toilet, you'll see like on a profile view, there's like a piping thing, like
Yep.
it's almost like an impression of it.
Mhm.
And I don't like that because grime and dust and
Agreed.
litter. And I'm like, I would rather just have it just nice and smooth, right? So it's just easy to wipe down rather than have all of these kind of strange crevices and
Yeah. Who fucking designed that?
stuff. And
Lazy
so
people, it's easier to press it for the porcelain.
I ordered a one-piece toilet, so the tank and the bowl are one piece, which is really heavy. And I ordered it in such a manner that you don't see that type of like those tubing things, which I think is a standard now these days. It's just a flat profile, so it's easy to wipe down. And I ordered 2 of them, and I waited. And then what I didn't realize is that you'll get a message from an email. You're supposed to click on it, and then it says something like check with us every 3 days. And I'm like, why do I have to check with you? Why didn't you just let me know where? Okay, whatever. But I didn't check because I didn't realize you're supposed to check. So by the time I did, it was missing. And so I called them up because it was supposed to be here today. And I need a toilet. I need 2 toilets. I don't have 2 toilets right now, and I need them. And they're not here. And I'm like, where the hell are my goddamn toilets? I wish there was a toilet store where they had toilets there that I could try out and then get them. So, yeah.
Excuse me, Mr. Phillip, you received our emails that you're supposed... We do not make enough toilets to meet the demand of toilet purchasing across this country.
Here's my problem. People don't fucking read. People don't read, and people just don't fucking read.
But there is a certain expectation that, like, a lot of contracts go around. Like, I forget what the, when a program updates and you agree to everything.
Terms and conditions, new agreement,
one of them,
blah, blah,
I forget
blah.
what it was for, when you agreed to it, meant you couldn't take part in a class action lawsuit against them for any reason. Period. And
Which
you
is
agree to it
stupid.
because you just want to use that program.
Yep.
They get so gross in what they put in to their legal contracts for them to avoid any type of
responsibility or accountability or any of that.
So
which
it's
is
not
such
that people
bullshit.
need to read more, it's that companies need to be better.
Yeah, companies need to be better and forget these fucking terms and conditions. Like, just, no one reads them. It's a waste of time.
I've given away my kidneys so many times I can't count.
You assume that you're giving away kidneys. I don't read those.
Oh no,
no
I have
one
the
does.
letters.
Who fucking reads those things? But it's
You
the same
do
thing with,
not
like,
know what WotC demands when you order a secret layer, okay?
It's like, just fucking bullet point the important stuff that's relevant to me as the consumer. That's all I care about. Bold it, underline it, I don't know.
But they do, and they still leave out the minutia that covers their asses.
One sentence. Ugh.
So, moral of the story, check when you're buying a shitter.
Welcome to...
God, 2 great cold opens in a row.
Welcome to Isn't It Obvious, where we talk about obvious things. My topic for today is when rating something, it should be on a -10 to +10 scale. So usually things are rated on like a 1 to 10 or like a 1 to 5, but it should be a -10 to +10.
Why not a 0 to 20?
Because 0 implies that like you have no emotion to it, and negative means that you thought about how angry it makes you feel, and therefore it's -10.
I disagree on this whole premise because numbers are arbitrary.
On this rating scale, what is more insulting, a 0 or a decimal? Is something worse if it's a 0.5 as opposed to a 0? A 0, I played it, disregarded it. A 0.5, I played it enough to give it the smallest amount of rating to encapsulate the amount of effort I put into trying to understand object in order to rate it.
I don't know. I don't think I really. I think numbers are fucking arbitrary. It's just to give you a general feel of something, right?
I feel like that's the
Depends.
problem.
There are people that come from a place of authority that what they rate can make or break.
Yeah, but the number itself is arbitrary.
But it's the number that
The scale is
like,
arbitrary.
The scale is arbitrary, but the authority behind the scale is not.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
scales do definitely matter for like review purposes, right?
Yeah,
Or,
you had
like,
Siskel and Ebert
Yeah,
that
so I'm not
their rating
arguing-
scale was 2 thumbs.
I'm not arguing that the scale
That's all you
isn't
really need, to be
useful. I'm
honest.
arguing that that how the scale is set up is arbitrary and doesn't matter. So like
So if
as
you
long as it's
establish a reason-
understandable.
Yeah, if you establish a reason why negative rating is relevant and important and should be considered, then I guess a
As
minus
compared-
10 to 10 would be fine.
But as compared to a 1 to 10 or a 1 to 20, it's the same amount. Is there something about negatives that is giving you like
I mean,
a
I will say
different-
this.
a different feeling?
I wish there was
Yes.
a negative star rating with like app reviews or anything that's digital. Like a 1 to 5 star where they only have half stars.
Oh,
so it's essentially
that's
like
a good point.
a 1 to 8 rating, essentially, with the star rating, because nothing can have 0 stars if it's ever
Right.
rated, because you can't rate something 0
No,
stars.
no, that's such a good point. No, you do need negative. You do need negatives, like because like a lot of people complain like I have to give this 1 star, but it would
Or
be
even half
0
star.
star, or I can't make a rating. Like you have to rate it.
Yeah.
So if
But
you could give it
with
a
that-
negative star, that would take like your experience was so bad that you are taking the entire average down.
But isn't that what it is? Because there is, if something goes below 4 stars, they will not be on respective app store.
Yeah, I mean, agreed. But I feel like if you're taking an Uber car and
Well, it's
you
same thing with
rated
Uber.
someone, I'm just using this as a hypothetical analogy, but
But I'm saying,
Oh.
sorry.
no, I mean like I always give them 5 stars because I never took an Uber. I took it once and I was like really surprised how nice it was. And so I started telling everybody like Uber is great, but this is like I feel like 20 years after Uber came out.
Mhm.
So I feel like I'm a person who's like, have you heard of this new thing called vinyl? Like you can listen to it on your own. You don't have to like dial it in, like using a phone. Like anyway. So I feel like they have a problem where if they dip below a certain star, they're just screwed. And I think it's like less than 4 stars out of a 5-star rating. It's like, oof.
It might even
Oof,
be
that-
4.5. Like,
It might be, yeah. I'm like
and you
that.
still have Uber drivers that commit sexual assault, and they're still Uber drivers.
Yeah, I mean that's because I don't understand the rate. I don't understand.
But
I don't
it
look
goes
at
the
that
same
one
way
as
for a
question
passenger
marks.
too. If the driver gives you less stars, you are less likely to get an Uber. Like it works both ways.
I
think.
agree in this level
You're
of
both
scale.
screwed because Uber's a horrible company.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But the experience I had was very nice. But anyway, I would say that in this level, I agree with you, Sarah, that it doesn't matter because it's super arbitrary, right? Like you either are 5 stars or you're screwed, right? So it's like a
But as a
Roger
reviewer,
and Siskel thumbs up,
nice
thumbs down.
it's nice to be able to say I hated this so much. You get a negative.
Yeah.
If it was standardized, if all scales were like a 0 to 10 or a 1 to 5 or a minus 10 to positive 10, the minus 10 to positive 10 is a better rating if everything is on that scale.
That's my problem with like looking at video game reviews too, right? Because obviously when you look at the Metacritic, like it doesn't really make sense because some people have letter scales, some people do 1 through 5, some people do 1 to 10, right? Well, how do you do half stars? And I feel like it really does skew it wrong because in my head, if I gave something on a negative 10 to 10 scale, I gave it a 0. It means to me that this thing just didn't work. Like it not only did not exceed my expectations or like miss my expectations, it was a flat out failure.
No. Wouldn't
Like,
0
just-
be it adequately met my expectations? Because
No.
it didn't
No.
move me. I wasn't super jazzed for it,
On
and I
a-
didn't absolutely hate it. So a
On
0,
a 0 to
a 0
no,
is
0 to-
pretty much
Five.
7.
No, 5 would do that. Okay,
that's
so I
still
have
positive.
to explain. Yes,
This is a 0 to 10 scale.
No, minus
This
10 to
is-
10 scale. 0
on a
would
minus
be
10 to
it,
10 scale.
It achieved every goal that I expected of it. That's a 0 on the scale. because it didn't move my meter. The scales are still balanced. What was bad was expected to be bad. What was good was expected to be good. It didn't move me either way.
It shouldn't be negative 10 to 10 then. It should be like negative 2 to 10. Or negative 1 to 10.
Negative 10 to 10. Because
0 would be it didn't work. Negative 1 would be this was the worst experience of my life. It actually harmed me. Like
yes. So I would say that 5 out of 10 would be like it met half my
yes, 5 would be like,
right?
it did what it
but
said.
That's still
it did what it as
positive.
advertised.
Are you just happy that
10 would be like,
Alfredo
it's
was
just
cheese,
the best.
butter, and noodle? That you
That
give
would be
that
a
a
5.
5 out of 10?
10 out of 10.
Yeah, that would be a
10
5.
out of 10.
That would be a 5 if it was just cheese, butter, and noodle. But if it was like a special noodle and delicious cheese that was super
spoiled
flavorful
butter.
and had all this.
Oh.
No, but if it was
you have great noodles, you have great cheese, spoiled butter.
Well, that would get it to like a 2 maybe.
That's 2,
like
so it's still a positive experience.
Unless it's not.
Even though you
great,
definitely got sick from that spoiled
butter. It depends. Well, that's the thing. If I threw up because of that butter, then.
But was it because of that
negative.
butter, or was it because you missed the Merlot and Chardonnay because you were trying to get best of both worlds?
No, I gave it a 2 originally because I had the Chardonnay, and there was so much Chardonnay that I had that I didn't even notice the butter was spoiled until later when I threw it up. And now I had to change my 2 review to a negative.
So now as a
because it actually caused me harm.
Because
yep.
They gave me too much wine early in the meal. The bread only absorbed so much of it.
I got food poisoning. That's a negative.
Overall, Olive Garden 2 out of 10.
No, if I threw up, it's a negative.
Why do you think that makes Merlot and Chardonnay?
Because it's delicious.
No, why would you ruin good wine? Like
because it's Olive Garden.
Also, it's gonna mix in my stomach anyway, so it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, but your stomach doesn't have taste buds, does it?
Doesn't. The stomach certainly cares about what's put in it, though. There's a party going on in my stomach, and everybody's throwing up.
That's not a good part. Okay,
That's
well
a
here,
party.
I think that on my scale, the 0 to 10 still is what it is, right? So 10 is fantastic, 5 is passable,
but
or 6
on a
is
scale of
passable.
1 to 10, is 5 really passable, or is 5 underwhelming? Because like a 7, I think is okay on a 1 to 10 scale or a 0 to 10 scale. If you're on that scale,
on the
a
industry.
7 is. It was fettuccine. It was cheese. It was pasta. It was butter. I didn't throw up because I stayed away from the Chardonnay because I know better because it's Olive Garden.
Yeah, but a 5 would be like
the noodles
a 5
were
would
cold
be like,
and the sauce was hot and it
no,
wasn't that bad because it kind of met in the middle, but it was still underwhelming. Like a 5 isn't the standard because you think of the 1 to 10 scale as like grades, and everybody's okay with a C. You're not super jazzed about it.
So you're thinking 50% is a failure.
No.
Like you got the food on my plate, but it was terrible. So a 5? Like, is that what you mean?
Yeah, it was edible. Like nothing was burnt.
It didn't cause me harm, but then I would give it like a 2.
But then a 2
1.
caused you harm.
I don't.
No. A negative 1 would cause me harm.
On a 1 to 10 scale, a 7 is average.
No, I guess on a 1 to 10 scale, it would be a 1.
Yeah, 1 would be bad, but a 5 is not achieved its goal. A 7 is it's achieved its goal. As much as
a 5 would, a 5 would be like I could have made this.
2, so you're already throwing the scale off anyway.
No, Micah, a 5 would be I could make this at home for less money. That's what a 5 would be.
That's not reviewing what you consumed,
edible,
though.
It's
You're
good.
changing the rules.
It's good. No, it's good, but like I could do this for less money. So I mean,
that's
nothing wrong with there's nothing wrong with the food. It's Micah. It's a fucking arbitrary number. It's all about how you feel about it.
It's the experience of doing it. That's why you rate a thing.
Yeah, it's how you feel about it.
Saying I could cook it at home for better isn't a proper rating.
So when you
that's what a 5 is.
When you rate something, are you rating it for yourself, or are you rating it to recommend to others?
Myself,
or does it
and
matter?
My experience of it is the recommendation through the arbitrary allocation.
So
blah,
if you're
blah,
going to
blah.
recommend,
that's what reviewing
is. You're recommend...
Siskel and Ebert had a 2 thumbs thing, and whether they liked the movie or not,
they had
2,000 words behind their decision. But it did boil down to 2 thumbs. Were they both up or both down? Was 1 up and 1 down? And whose was up and whose was down? Like that was a rating.
So
system.
Phil,
5-point rating.
So Phil, what do you have to say?
I'm just wondering. Okay, how would you? This is why it's like you're saying, Sera, is all bullshit. So I agree because, in my opinion, if I were gonna leave a review on Amazon for like 3.5 stars, like what the hell does that even mean? Like what does that really mean? 3.5? It doesn't make sense. It's either 1 star, it's garbage, or 5 stars,
No,
it's great.
3.5. Body
There's
pillow
no.
fit my body. Had the wrong image on it. 3.5.
There should be three choices. There should be met expectations, did not meet expectations, and I have no opinion on this.
That's it? It's okay, bad, and no.
It should be more like okay.
No,
So in my
okay,
head,
maybe it should be great, good, terrible.
So there's no
How about
okay, because good is still a positive.
That's good.
Good is a positive.
good is
but
okay.
Things can be
Yep.
neutral. Neutral is a response.
It's not fantastic.
So
Yeah.
you need. So
So
now you're
good.
at 4.
No. So
Good is not
good is your
neutral.
neutral
Good is still
response.
positive.
Yeah, but anything that's less than good is garbage,
No,
right?
there's
Because no
still
one wants
neutral.
a not
you,
good thing.
You can have neutral before it gets to garbage.
Well, who's gonna buy a neutral thing?
People that
No
want
one.
to test neutrality
It's a
of
useless-
other people.
McDonald's.
Neutral is a useless rating.
Neutrals
But having
is-
2 positives and 1 negative is not a good rating system.
It is. It's a great rating system. You either like it, you thought it met your expectations. It's not like outstanding, but it's okay,
so
and
right there, you
worth the
put in
money you
other
spent.
levels.
Yeah, so that's good.
But you have good.
That's what I'm describing as
you
good.
have, on a scale, if we had this as
Great,
a percentage,
good,
you
not
have like
good.
bad is 40%, good is 40%, and great
No,
is 20%.
don't assign fucking.
So it's not even
don't
balanced.
Assign,
'cause
no,
they're not equal
don't
thirds.
assign. It doesn't have to be, Micah. It doesn't have to be balanced. The numbers are fucking arbitrary anyway. So if you have
so
not
more
good,
would be better then. If they're arbitrary, more gives you a greater
you just need
definition
3.
of the arbitrariness of it.
No. I think you should just have not good, good, and then this is so great. I have to
now
tell
the
you, you
great
get 2
is even
points
way
instead of 1.
more. It's a 0, a
that's the
5,
great-
or an
no.
8 billion.
Why are you putting words into my? Well, yeah, no. That's why you're putting words in my mouth. It's either good or not good, right? Except in the occasional, like, oh my gosh, this was amazing. I have to give it 2 points instead of 1.
So everything should have the 2 thumb
Ooh.
system. It was good.
Sure. Yep.
It was
2
okay.
thumbs.
It was bad.
No,
No,
that's
no.
the problem with
It was
the
great.
thumb system.
It was good. It wasn't good.
And that's it. There are no thumbs down.
Yep.
It's 2 thumbs up,
No thumbs
1
down.
thumbs up, hands in pockets.
Yes. It totally conveys. It totally conveys everything that needs to be conveyed.
So it's like, hey, well, how was that movie? My hands are
How was
in
the
my
movie?
pocket. It's like, oh, oof.
Pocket
a bit
hands.
rough, huh?
Oh,
Pocket hands
was
God,
not
really?
worth-
Schindler's List was that bad.
That's the other thing about Facebook too, is like when you like something
You can't
and the
unlike
like
it.
is about something that you don't encourage, but you're liking it because you want to have visibility on it. It's kind of screwed up, right?
Well,
Like,
that's a different
oh,
topic. That social media is bad.
Yeah, that's not even a topic that needs to be discussed. I
Oh.
think we can just say it right now and
Shit.
done. Yes,
Okay, I
it's
may
bad.
need 5 minutes after this episode then.
It's okay. I still have to get another beer, so it's fine.
Okay, well, I still think that you guys are dismantling my argument to pieces, so I'm just loving it. 'Cause
Like, arbitrary is arbitrary.
arbitrary is
You're
arbitrary.
eviscerating
More
your
is
numbers.
better. Like, I respect
Nope,
a
disagree.
0 to 100 rating more than I respect a 0 to 10 or a 0 to 5.
I feel like, in my opinion, 0 isn't low enough.
That's
That's
fair.
actually my
If
argument
10
about
or
this.
5 is your maximum,
Because-
yeah, I agree.
I think
And
you guys.
usually it's 1 to
Yeah.
10 too. Like, oh, rate this by 1 to 10. It's like I
Too
don't
many
even
choices.
think this doesn't even deserve a positive number. Like 1 would still imply I gave it 1 star.
No.
Or half a star. Like that's not right. It should be negative stars. Like my review should take stars away from other people. Right? That's how
Yeah.
bad this thing is. And I think that there is some magnitude of absolutism involved where if you're a 0 on something, that means you're not very passionate about why it sucked, right? So like watching this movie just didn't do it for you. It wasn't like a
Someone
4
else
out of
might
10.
enjoy it, but it wasn't for you.
But for you, it's like whatever, 0, right? Like it's terrible, but like I don't feel like it was terrible for. And I'm gonna say like I don't recommend this movie at all, but it didn't make me angry. Like a -5 would be like this is not only is it bad,
It's
but
offensive.
It's ignorant.
Schindler's
It's
List won
offensive.
Oscars, Phil. Why do you hate it so much?
Why are you Schindler's listing everything?
Okay, here's the problem with Schindler's List. You don't want to watch it more than once. It's not a movie
I
you
disagree.
really
I watch
would
it every
recommend to
Sunday,
anybody.
and I cry a single tear when that yellow jacket.
It's
Lies.
Is it red jacket? Crap. Ah, that damn
Red
it.
Jacket. And anyway,
Definitely every Sunday, huh?
Every Sunday that ends in a Y.
Oh,
there's a problem with that movie because how would you recommend this to somebody? It's like, what type of movies do you like, Phil? Oh, I really like Schindler's List. Like,
Well,
what?
It's the same response I get when people are like, "What's your favorite movie?" I'm like, 2001: A Space Odyssey. They're like, "No, it's not." I'm like, yes, it is. What the fuck?
I will fight you. It is.
It's
Okay, what's your real? But Micah, seriously, what's your real
Fifth Element. But it is 2001: A Space Odyssey because of all of the architecture around it. The fact that the movie was made in collaboration with the book, and they each took different liberties based on their medium, is super interesting as a multimedia comparison. Like, comparing the book 2001 by Arthur C.
Sera
Clarke
has
and
a nap.
comparing the film by Kubrick. Wow. Keep that gap in there. Yeah, because they both discussed it, and they both came up with the story, and they were each like, I have an idea, and they're like, I'm not going to talk to you for a month. And then they went and like did their stuff, and how it's portrayed is very different. Like, Hal in the movie is much more of an ominous threat, where like from the get-go, that computer's like, got my eye on you. That's But in the book, it's like Hal is just a baby who doesn't know the consequences of his actions, because he's a early AI, and he's so much more empathetic in the book. And that comparison makes the movie far more interesting to me than how visually trippy it is.
Okay, but the problem with the movie was that it was really boring, and like that's not
Doesn't change the fact
that's
it's my
not
favorite
something
movie.
the movie should be.
And plus, all of the snow. No, sorry, that's a different Kubrick fact. Never mind.
So,
Okay,
Phil, what's your favorite movie?
And how can we shit on
it? Look,
How can
Schindler's
Micah
List
shit on
is not a movie you recommend to
No,
people. It's not a movie you would watch more than once. It's not a movie you would show to your
It's a
kids.
movie-
It's not a
That's it.
movie
You
you would be
just
like, I'm
dodged the
having movie
question.
night.
You
Why don't
just
come over,
dodged that.
bring
Schindler's
popcorn.
List is a movie you recommend. It's not a movie you recommend for
Never.
date night, for family night, for... No,
movie
you can
night.
suggest it for movie night. It's
something
it's
you
a
need to
quality,
watch,
well-constructed film that tells its story in a brutalistic manner, and you get a lot of visceral reactions, and you see a lot of horrors firsthand that you would not experience because we did not live in Germany in 1942.
I would say that it has a lot of flaws in the movie as a movie, because how would the in my opinion, a movie should be something you watch and you're
Graveyard
kind
of
of
the Fireflies.
entertained. Yeah, that's not good. 7 Years a
12
Slave,
Years a
not
Slave.
good. Like these movies.
Transformers,
Hmm.
not good movies.
You tried.
Show a lot of trauma that a lot of people have to work through.
Moonlighter.
Yeah, but sometimes some of those stories are important to watch or read or experience in some way, in some medium. So we don't.
No one
forget
should
those
watch
important
The
things.
Room for its cinematic qualities. You want to watch it for how much of a train wreck that movie is.
So there are movies that like The Pianist by that Roman Polanski rapist guy. So like these movies are just, in my opinion, I understand why they exist.
What about Life is Beautiful?
I understand what they do. And
Sorry, interjection.
Yeah, right. That was actually, I was trying to think of the name of that movie because that was coming up in my head, and I'm like, I don't know how I end up watching these movies because
Oscar bait.
they just, I guess, are a thing to watch. But like I find them so depressing, and I'm like, in my head it's really strange to be like, what would you like to do tonight? Oh, I just really want to be depressed. It's like, wow, well, do I have the movie for you? Right? Like this is just really
As
strange.
a counter, is
So 7 out of 10 stars.
Is MASH the best representation for the Korean War in media?
No idea.
Probably. I don't think there's much media
But
or
isn't the
any
best
type
a
of
bunch of
real
American
discussion
doctors being
about.
real callous at their situation as a medical unit in a war, but it's a comedy? Or Hogan's Heroes in terms of World War II POWs?
Okay, that's a difference because I feel like in Hogan Heroes that's hilarious and MASH there was no other sort of television show that I can think of that highlights anything about the Korean War or real even films. I mean, it's a forgotten war for a reason.
Is it the same thing in Korean media? They don't have.
Oh no, no.
So, is there a quality Korean film about the Korean War that more accurately depicts what actually happened there than the Americanized MASH?
I think so, yeah. The one that comes to my mind is Taekuki, which is a story of two brothers that ended up having to um, get conscripted by the South, and it's a really kind of a sad story. But even then, it shows only the southern side of it. Like if you go to the DMZ, there's kind of like a joint section where they show you North Korean goods and North Korean kind of like story and propaganda. But there they kind of like show a very different side of what the Americans had done to the Korean people, right? Like stories of soldiers doing
Hmm.
crimes against humanity against their villagers, right? And they have this kind of like woman as a statue, and it describes a very terrible thing that had occurred to her and her family by U.S. forces or Allied forces in this case because the UN was involved. And this is a North Korean narrative, right? So I'm sure that there are better stories or more like I shouldn't say fulfilling, but like more comprehensive stories about it that never really kind of go outside of the Korean Peninsula. I mean, MASH is probably the closest you get because that's the only one that I can think of.
But wouldn't you want to suggest those harder hitting, different perspectives as opposed to just the shiny, squeaky American version?
It's the same for like the Vietnam War and like Iwo Jima or like
Hmm.
the Pacific, like
Right.
the Band of Brothers version for Japan. Like it's it's really hard to recommend movies that are just messed up. Like I you know that there is a narrative to it. You know that there's a bias. You know that there is a message being played. And one of the reasons why I really don't like Band of Brothers is because it portrays kind of warfare like that it's somewhat romantic.
Hmm.
Like I mean, it's not meant to be like that. I mean, they show death and tragedy and obviously murder, and
Yeah, my
people losing limbs.
my
But
mom and aunt were
Well,
obsessed with that
also, World
show
War
or
II,
that
from an American perspective, is just a better
whatever
good guy
film.
versus bad guy because there's very little redeeming quality from Nazis. Even when, in like the first 2, 3 episodes or something, they come across an American born person in the German army. They're walking by these Germans like, hey, where the fuck are you from? He's like, Jersey. And they're like, fuck, what? And then they
yeah,
walk off, and then those people are just executed
the,
and they never talk about it again.
yeah. By Lieutenant Spears apparently
Yeah,
murders prisoners of war, right? And just guns them down. This is like the mythos of him, and it's considered to be like badassery. But like you can imagine what would happen if the roles reversed, right? Um, and that's kind of a funny thing because people are like, oh well, Band of Brothers is such a good show, and the Pacific is just like the Japanese front of it, and I'm like, this is just bizarre because in my brain it's like kind of a
uh,
propaganda to be like, see, this is a thing that you should do
historical
because it's
revision through
patriotic, and I'm
mass
like,
media is fucking gross.
so
Yeah.
war movies in general are just like I don't know really what to make of it. I don't consider it to be historical. I think Flag of Our Fathers, like the Clint Eastwood one, it's yeah, again, it's like this is a super patriotic,
Of us
chest
just
thumping thing,
Yeah.
and they try their best to show
mhm.
Japanese people like the Japanese side of it, right? But like, it's just like, oh, come on. I
It
mean,
gets a little
But
nationalistic or a little
with
yes,
that argument in place, isn't Schindler's List worth suggesting because it is from an American perspective, but it is showing the compromises that a quote unquote good Nazi made, even though he still used slave labor. He still oversaw the death of hundreds, if not thousands, of innocent Jews. Like, him breaking down at the end of the film saying he could have saved more is a very powerful scene. Because it's still showing the flaws of
Spoilers
him as
I
alert.
think
the
I
hero,
kind of
air quotes.
I still agree with Phil though, in some ways that these movies are in some ways a little over dramatized, a little over
So a Saw film
romanticized.
is a better way of judging American
No, no,
or
no,
of
no,
the
no.
human condition than
No,
some of these historical
no,
narratives.
no. I'm saying it's I think these are important films to watch. So I agree with you, Micah, that they are important films to watch, but I think it's also important to remember that these are dramatized as well. These are meant for they're kind of romanticized in some ways, and not all of it can be like it's not 100%. Like this isn't a documentary. This is a film for entertainment or to invoke a feeling, right? It's not necessarily 100% true, and it's not this clinical dissection of what actually happened. It's a story that is maybe embellished in some ways, or some things might have been swept under the rug. Who knows? Like it's hard to say. But I also agree that it is important to watch them anyway, because those feelings about what happened are also
empathetically
important.
can change your perspective on what usually is portrayed as a very black and white situation or conflict.
Well, and in theory, you'll sympathize with what the video is trying to get you to sympathize with, right? So it ends up serving the purpose of, in theory, not repeating those mistakes
all right.
that were made. Hopefully.
In terms of this, for Saving Private Ryan, Phil, at the final climactic battle, when it looks like all is lost, and Upham is running around with all of the armaments because his own platoon doesn't trust him to actually exercise violence against an enemy that they're at conflict with, and that enemy wants to kill them. They come across the German that Upham saved and let go. And that German killed 2 of his platoon members. And the big character twist for Upham is he now can take charge with a gun. He has the confidence to, have the authority behind his weapon. And that German, using that empathy, goes, Upham? And then he shoots him. And that is a redeeming moment for Upham. Is that good? Because God damn. Okay, I thought you were going to give it like 4.
Because I like Private Ryan for all the reasons why I don't like
some of the it was one of the rare films where Vin Diesel dies.
For all the reasons why I don't I like Private Ryan for the same reason why I don't like Band of Brothers, which is it's a movie that kind of shows a group of soldiers all not understanding why the hell they're there, right? It's like, hey, even Captain has a mom, like, well, maybe he doesn't, right? Because they don't understand why they have a platoon being sent out to rescue one guy
employed.
And you can kind of see like their cynicism of it, and one by one their comrades are dying, sort of thing. But again, I don't like that movie. 7 out of 10 stars, by the way, because it has a very strange, insidious message. I'm not sure if people caught it. And this is not from me. I had to read it online about why I felt uneasy about Upham. He had a Section 8 arm on him, so he's like intelligence, right? Yeah. He doesn't have combat experience. Translator, knows French and German and English and some other language, I imagine. And he's more of the academic, right? So you have like this academic guy explaining to them like what the world is, right? And you have these hardened soldiers that know what the world is. The world's really shitty, right? And towards the end, you see Upham become more like those hard soldiers. Like, you don't trust academics because they're not trustworthy. Not because they don't believe what they're saying, but because they're...
Yeah, they saw a picture, they didn't experience
and that's the...
Callbacks.
But that's actually...
Callback.
But that's actually a very insidious message, right?
Insidious.
That, like, the feeling that you yourself have this instinct that can be easily manipulated by leadership, right? And then someone from an academic background says, hey, actually kind of like cooler jets because this is what's really happening here. and then like, oh, let me provide you historical context about why we shouldn't just jump into this war, and then they're like, no, this guy is a coward,
Mhm.
which is how he's portrayed, right? This guy looks at human life not in the lens of a war that we were in, which is how it's portrayed, until he finally
Mhm.
becomes a man
Yeah,
and
his
kills him,
redemption
right?
arc
And so
is
I'm looking
committing
at this
murder.
like, oh, for heaven's sake.
Yeah,
By
I
the
had the same
way,
as
this
well.
movie came out like a little bit
It's like
before the
98,
Iraqi War, right?
97.
98, right? And then there's this kind of build up to like 2001 occurs, right? So it's like that's not that long ago between 98,
But also, it's
97
like
to
that
early
wasn't
2000s, right?
planned.
Where you
Or maybe it was. MGM was in on 9/11. I like it. We're a new conspiracy theory podcast.
there were not a lot of good feelings about how the US was dismissive in their global presence prior to Iraq and
But
Afghanistan.
Bosnia was
So there was a
pretty
coal bombing, there
positive.
was the marine bombings,
Like, in terms of Western portraying it,
there was
like
the
NATO was seen as the people that came in and separated Yugoslavia into their separate countries, kind of thing, right?
during these times, like I think Kosovo and Bosnia was again something that people wanted to see more of. Like we pulled out of Mogadishu um because Clinton didn't want any further bloodshed, right? Like it felt like the U.S. was losing its valor or its kind of confidence at the world stage, and people thought that this was incorrect, And yet you had another group of people saying that the U.S. shouldn't be the world police. This movie comes out, right? Like it's not that it's a conspiracy, but it does kind of showcase this sort of like
No, we're America, we are the good guys. Here's a movie showing it, kind of thing.
But we know that we're like again when I say it that we know that we're not the good guys. People are like, but
We
you live in society, Philip. Like, so I'll just say it this way: we don't romanticize
Mm,
the Vietnam War,
some people do.
right? Do we?
Like people,
some people
Some
do.
people do, right?
Some
Mel
people-
Gibson's
yeah, but I've heard some pundits saying that
right.
even though we lost Vietnam in terms of like us escaping and southern Vietnam falling, they are now a pro-capitalist country that make their goods. And like capitalism itself ended up ruling out, even though through force of armaments we couldn't do it. It just our presence inevitably turned them into like they're just
Whatever they
interacting
want
with
to convince
international
themselves
trade.
of.
So I guess
Sure.
that requires some level of capitalism.
It-
That's too generous.
-8 stars. -8 out of negative 10 to
Sounds
10.
better than ratings.
The problem with what I have with the problem I have with these type of war films in general too, like they don't show the aftermath of the soldier that needs help, psychological or otherwise. Like a third of our homeless are veterans, right? Like if you look
Yeah.
at our even Minnesota VA
Fucking
stats,
American
they
Sniper.
paint a
Suicide is
pretty
a
bad
That
huge-
picture.
film. Oh.
Um,
That baby was bad enough, but then you actually look at the content of the film and it gets worse.
there there is this huge disconnect between reality about how we look at like the hurrah hurrah America wins type of like mentality of look at our nation, look at our ability to have a 10 carrier strike group plus another carrier on its way, right? Like we have the two largest air forces in the world, the Navy and the Air Force, like not in that order.
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of a strange thing, and yet, and then these movies, like, these movies, they really kind of like ham it up, like, oh, look at the American soldiers are here, they're the good guys, and now the day is saved, and then look at how we treat them when they get back, right? Look at what we do to them.
Yeah, that's
as
when the
far as,
movie
like,
ends. Is right before they get off the boat
But then you have
or get
pieces
off
of
the
media
plane.
that try and show that. The
Or go
first
home.
Rambo movie was a Vietnam vet with PTSD who saw injustice in America and acted as how he was trained to act, and he just murdered a bunch of people. But yet, then that was turned into heroism. Because the
yeah,
end of the first Rambo movie was like him breaking down because he
yes.
cannot function in society because he is a trained killer. And then everybody else is like, "Did you see how cool Sylvester Stallone was when he murdered that guy with a knife?"
We're almost like Pavlovianly trained to
Yeah.
be like, wow, that was a cool movie, like not caring about the premise or context of it.
Or
I give
Like
Rambo
the
4 out of 10
2008
stars.
remake when he's
So
really old
I
fighting
feel
against
like
an ice cream
there
cartel.
was
They're talking about like Rambo First Blood.
I haven't seen any of these.
No, it's a
films, so
general
you're asking
statement.
me.
It doesn't fucking matter. They're all bad movies.
If you say so. If you say so.
There should be a negative rating because giving something positive like that, and this is my problem with like the linear scale. I um I have some really big problems with watching some of these heroic movies, right? Like they're good movies to watch, but there is something kind of dark about them. Not just the context of war, but like why it was released, when it was released, what was the mood of the American people, what was the bias of it, and it really makes me feel uneasy. But when you mention it to others, they're like, "Oh, geez, you're just kind of like this."
You're getting too cerebral in your films.
Well, Phil, I'm glad you finally came around to it. Now we can finally admit that The Last Jedi is the best Star Wars movie ever.
I get that.
Why?
Negative
It
9
subverts
stars.
every expectation. I agree. We should have. We should just have a standardized rating scale that applies to everything, and you try and have it.
But Micah isn't allowed to make it.
Honestly, a 0 to 100, and like you take it as anything above like a 65 might be worth your time. And beyond that, it's based on the review. Anything below that,
key to happiness
like,
is less choices.
what is to stop in this day and age? People shit posting on whatever piece of media. Like,
all
imagine BTS
is...
Army going to like the newest Eminem album and all of them rating it -10. That's gonna tank Eminem, and Eminem shit anyway. But I don't know if he's -10 shit. Exactly.
He's not. He's not worse than the Vietnam War and The Last Jedi.
The BTS Army would go. They would. Oh.
Which, by the way, the listeners, I rated The Last Jedi worse than Vietnam.
That film was a war crime, Ryan Johnson. Sorry, more of a war crime than all of Vietnam.
Right. That's enough.
I forgot how you rated it.
Listen to the show notes, people.
Less choices. No, less choices is better for everyone. We should just have a 3-rank system.
No.
Bad, good,
Thanks, Mom.
outstanding. Yep. Anyway, thanks.
Thanks, Mom.